studios of the Metro News Radio Network in Morgantown, this is West Virginia's premier sports talk show.
From Weirton to Welch, Martinsburg to Matewan, and all points in between, this is the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Northside Automotive, Route 19 in Summersville. We'll beat the advertised price of any other dealer in the state, guaranteed. And now, sitting in for Tony Caridi, here's Brad Howe.
Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome in. Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline. Brad Howe alongside the Goose, Randy Jerko, on this Monday, what is today? December 21st. Christmas fast approaching. Welcome in. Thanks for listening wherever you may be across the state and beyond. A bunch to get to this evening. Mountaineer basketball is back in action at the Coliseum coming up in a little less than an hour. Mountaineers will take on Eastern Kentucky, and we'll get you set for that one as we talk with Tony coming up here in just a few minutes. We'll also hear from Dana Holgerson, who met with the media earlier today about the upcoming bowl game against Arizona State. And we'll wrap the show by talking to Travis Jones, who was on the call Saturday as Shepherd, who had an outstanding run through the Division II college football playoffs. Played in the national championship on Saturday. We'll fill you in on how the Rams did Saturday against Northwest Missouri State when we catch up with Travis, who was on the call with Rasheed Marshall in Kansas City over the weekend. Goose, how are you this evening?
I'm good, man.
Good?
Yeah, finished up my last Christmas shopping thing earlier today.
Very good.
Ready to roll.
Well done. Well done. You're ready to roll.
Yes, sir.
We've got, as we sit here in the studio, it's that time of year, we've got bowl games on. Western Kentucky leading South Florida 38-35 in the Miami Beach Bowl. We've been through this a bunch of times. You good with all the bowls?
Yeah.
You're with me.
Yes.
There's football on.
Right. If I feel like watching a game, I'll tune in. I'll watch it. I won't be dialed in, and I don't care about to analyze it. But, yeah, I mean, there's football on. I'm going to watch it in the middle of the day. I think with there being so many bowl games, they should play more, like, now. 3 o'clock on a work day. Who cares?
Well, speaking of that, tomorrow, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl comes up. Akron and Utah State, 3:30 from Boise. And that's followed by the Boca Bowl, Temple versus Toledo. That's 7. Wednesday, we have the Poinsettia Bowl, Boise State, Northern Illinois at 3:30. The GoDaddy Bowl, Bowling Green, Georgia Southern at 8. Thursday, Christmas Eve, we have the Bahamas Bowl, Middle Tennessee versus Western Michigan at noon.
Man, that's the one to get invited to. If you're not playing in the playoffs, Bahamas around Christmas time.
Not a bad gig. But here's another one that's not bad. That's a nice day of destinations. Also on Christmas Eve, 8 p.m., Cincinnati and San Diego State in the Hawaii Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a nice one. You got Bahamas
Absolutely.
and Hawaii at the same time. Now, speaking of bowl games, we're fast approaching the Cactus Bowl. That's kind of sneaking up here. We got about just under 2 weeks to go. West Virginia takes on Arizona State, of course, 10:30, January 2nd. Dana Holgerson met with the media today to talk about that game. Here's his thoughts on Arizona State.
Not a whole lot of familiarity with them just because it's Pac-10, long ways away, East Coast, West Coast matchup. Don't have any common opponents. I guess the closest common opponent would be Texas A&M from our bowl game last year to their opening game this year would be the closest common opponent that we can have some familiarity with. But, with that said, I think it's kind of neat. That's what bowl games are kind of about, being able to get teams that don't have a whole lot of familiarity with each other and be able to go somewhere like Scottsdale is obviously awesome.
Dana continued talking about the Arizona State offense.
Offensively, I know they lost their coordinator and everything, but my experiences with this is you can't change a whole lot. So we just got to base it based on what they do offensively on the film that we have, and to me they're very up tempo, efficient offense, very balanced. They're right down the middle as far as being the run pass aspect of it. They're going to try to establish the run. Got a dual threat quarterback. Number 2's can sling it around a little bit, but he's gritty, he's competitive. He'll do some things in the run game that we got to account for him. Great skill at wideout. DJ Foster is one of the best in the country, and they got the transfer. The Lucian kid, the transfer guy from UCLA, I believe, is where he came in. That guy's made a bunch of plays as well. So, they're averaging 5.8 yards a play. They're moving the ball, not turning it over, but one and a half times a game. run a lot of plays, so we're going to have to defend a lot of plays, and they're good on critical downs as well, which allows them to stay out there on the field and move the ball. So it'll be a challenge for us defensively. We've seen this kind of an offense before. Clearly in the Big 12, you're facing up-tempo offenses. You're facing balanced offenses with good wideouts. So our guys are used to that, and they know that if they relax against an opponent like this, then they're going to go right by you. So it'll be a good challenge for our defense.
You know, I think that's the interesting point about this game from a matchup standpoint. You don't know what you're going to get in these bowl games. But from a matchup standpoint, I think stylistically, you're happy with the draw if you're West Virginia. Agree?
Yeah, yes, because it's not going to be a team that runs anything that you probably have not seen before. I totally agree. This is the kind of up-tempo, kind of spread them out, try to get matchup offense that every team in the Big 12 runs except for Iowa State and Kansas State.
Yeah, so given some of the matchups we were talking about in some of those other bowls, you look at Texas Tech going against LSU, right?
Right.
Which Leonard Fournette's going to run it
He's
a million
times. He's going to get 40
times.
carries right up the gut.
Yeah, now West Virginia's run defense is better than Texas Tech's, but that's a matchup I don't think you want to be part
Arkansas.
of this.
I mean, we talked about this last year. West Virginia went to the Liberty Bowl, and there was a lot of teams that, who are they going to face? And I know one of the teams that people said, I don't want any part of Arkansas because they were going to line up with two tight ends in the I formation, and they were just going to run it down your throat, and they get the biggest offensive line in the country. So, yeah, that's a good point.
This Arizona State offense rushes for 185 yards per game, which is 6th in the Pac-12, 51st overall. They throw it for 290 yards a game, 3rd in the Pac-12, 22nd overall. So, it's a team that is, as Dana Holgorsen mentioned, fairly balanced, but does like to throw it a little more than they run it. Again, playing right into West Virginia's hands. Now, defense has been a challenge for this Arizona State team. They're giving up nearly 33 points a game, 9th in the Pac-12, 97th overall. Here's Dana talking about the defense for Arizona State.
Coach Graham's a defensive guy. They're talented on defense now, and they put pressure on you virtually every single time that you snap the football. They're as good as anybody in the country in forcing negative plays. Whether it's sacks, whether it's tackles for loss. Around 9 to 10 times a game, they're getting you behind the chains. So they're really good up front at creating havoc. They blitz. Looks to me on video, it seems like they blitz 100% of the time. It's as much as I've seen, and they're really good at it. So. They're great against the run. That's because they're big and they can tackle, and their backers can go lateral, but also fill gaps and get you behind the line of scrimmage. So blitzing to get you behind the chains is what they do. So they're as good as I've seen this year at getting you behind the chains. They give up some plays in the pass game because that's their mentality. When you blitz that much, when you put so much pressure and try to stop the run, up front, they're going to give up plays in the pass game. That's just kind of how that works. It's a good matchup for them. Obviously, we're a run-first team and work hard on trying to get the ball in Wendell and Russell's hands. They take that away. We're going to have to be efficient and effective in the pass game, and we've been working hard on that here for the last couple of weeks.
So no surprise there. We've seen that against this West Virginia team. What are you going to do? You're going to take away the run. Now, some of this stat that I'm about to give you may be attributed to what Holgorsen just said about the effectiveness at getting you tackled behind the line of scrimmage, which affects your run, your rushing yard total. But 124 yards a game, 2nd in the Pac-12, 19th in the country for Arizona State. So, yeah, that's an area that is clearly the matchup to watch. Can West Virginia run the ball against an Arizona State team that, again, at least statistically, has done a good job at stopping the run?
And, man, it's hard for you all of a sudden to get into a bowl game and change what you do defensively.
Right.
But if you're Arizona State and West Virginia wants to run the ball, and pretty much West Virginia's passing game the last half of the season was hope to catch teams in which Shelton Gibson and Javon Durant ran by them and could hit some big plays. Oh, man, if you're Arizona State, do you still pin your ears back and come after Skylar knowing that he's, fairly mobile and can make some plays with his feet? And the one thing that you don't want to let West Virginia do is hit the deep ball. Stop the run game, set back in a zone, make West Virginia do the intermediate passing game to move the ball. Man, that would be awful appetizing.
One of the challenges, and we talked about this before we went on air, and I've said it a bunch, being around, I don't know how many bowl games I've been to personally, it amazes me that either team can get their guys ready to play in a bowl game. It's such an unusual situation,
Sure.
and you're waiting so long to play, and especially in bowl games like this, it's not hard to get up for the old BCS games or to get up for the college football playoffs or to get up for the January 1st games. These are the games that I think it's really hard to get your guys going. So simply this comes down to two teams in West Virginia and Arizona State that had similar seasons.
Yes.
Arizona State had more national hype coming into the year. A lot of people had them as a dark horse Final Four contender. That clearly did not work out for them. So they had a middle-of-the-road type season. West Virginia, as we know, disastrous October, righted the ship until it stumbled late. But similar type teams, this simply, to me, comes down. We're going to go through a bunch of stats, and we're going to talk about a lot of matchups over the next week and a half. This comes down to simply who wants to be there more.
Motivation.
Which team wants it more? And I'll say this right now, there's almost no way to predict that. I don't know that even coaching staffs will be able to predict which team shows up, if either of them do, in this game.
There isn't. You're absolutely correct, because you can make an argument for both teams showing up and both teams laying eggs, right?
Yes.
West Virginia could go out there. It's in sun. You want to rejuvenate yourself. This team spoke going into that Kansas State game. You had a lot of the seniors talking about, we want to win 8 games. We want to be the winningest team at West Virginia since they joined the Big 12.
Okay, great.
They talked a lot about
Good
that.
talking point.
Boom, West Virginia. We want to come out and we want to do that. You could say Arizona State. Why would they want to be there? They're going to sleep in their same bed. You don't get the trip that a lot of other college kids do. You don't get to go out to all these restaurants and experience something different. It's just a typical day. But then you can make the flip side. They're comfortable. They're going to be playing in front of more fans.
That's right.
West Virginia is not going to take a bunch of people out there. They're just not. So, I mean, you have no way to predict, like you just said, what could happen, because you could make arguments for both teams showing up and playing the game of their life, and both teams going out there and going through the motions and getting blown out.
And that's what this comes down to, as a lot of these bowl games do. Who wants to be there more? Who's ready to play on that particular day? Speaking of ready to play, Western Kentucky has now gone up 45-35, 5:09 remaining in the Miami Beach Bowl. All right, time for our first break. When we come back, we'll preview tonight's basketball game against Eastern Kentucky with Tony Caridi. We're back after this on the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline.
As a cyclist, we make choices. We choose which motorcycle manufacturer to buy from. We choose what type of motorcycle we ride. We even choose where and when to ride. We also choose to ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Alcohol is involved in 50% of motorcycle fatalities in West Virginia. That's 1 in 2 drivers who die each year. Don't become a statistic. Ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Presented by the West Virginia Department of Transportation, Governor's Highway Safety and Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Program.
Someday we'll go to the edge of the galaxy, but for now, you can go to the ends of the earth in a Jeep brand SUV. Find your adventure in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most awarded SUV ever. Catch a show of shooting stars underneath the night sky in the Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 four-wheeler of the year. And go far, far away in the Jeep Renegade with up to 31 mpg highway. Hurry in for a great deal at the Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event. Deal ends January 4th. Star Wars: The Force Awakens in theaters now, rated PG-13. Purchase and get 0% APR financing for 75 months or $3,500 total cash allowance on the 2015 Jeep Cherokee Limited 4x4. EPA estimate 1.4-liter engine with manual transmission. 0% APR financing for 75 months equals $1,333 per month per 1,000 financed for well-qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital regardless of down payment. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery by 1/4/16. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
West Virginia has balanced its budget on the back of the coal industry ever since we became a state 150 years ago. Historically, the coal industry and coal-fired electric utilities have accounted for over 60% of all business taxes, while high-energy wages contribute a disproportionate share of income taxes, and coal severance dollars sustain important programs in all counties. All told, the industry infuses over $26 billion to our state's economy. Coal alone has paid down nearly $1 billion of the state's workers' compensation debt. Consequently, all state businesses have experienced major reductions in workers' comp benefits. The coal industry has always supported our people and our economy, but it's under attack from the Obama administration and the EPA. It's fighting to survive. Coal taxes in West Virginia are higher than our surrounding states. We're losing coal markets to our neighbors. Let's get our mines and coal miners working again. Support a reduced tax rate for mining, paid for by West Virginia Coal Association.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News for 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Welcome back in, Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline, Monday edition. Brad Howe, Randy Jerko along with you. Quick reminder, it's not too late to find the perfect Christmas tree. Mountain Vista Tree Farm in Princeton makes the search enjoyable for the entire family. Enjoy hot chocolate, horseback rides, and a toasty fire pit. For more information, call 800-225-5982 or visit go2wv.com. And Goose, as we were talking earlier, West Virginia back in action tonight. 7 p.m. at the Coliseum against Eastern Kentucky. For a preview of that game, let's go to the phones, bring in Tony. Tony, good evening.
Good evening to you, man.
All right, here we go. I literally feel like this is Groundhog Day. Here's what I'm about to ask you. West Virginia back in action against a team that it's going to beat, that likes to score points but can't play any defense. So I don't know if I'm referring to Marshall or Eastern Kentucky there. Take your pick.
Yeah, and how about that? And Marshall easily beat Eastern Kentucky. Marshall, when they played them, went wild from three-point range. We talked about that last week. They made 15 threes against this Eastern Kentucky team. This is an interesting EKU team. You know, Jeff Neubauer, the former WVU assistant, did a really good job in building this program up, got to the NCAA tournament a couple of times, and then left in the offseason, kind of a surprise deal, went to Fordham. And they've got a new head coach. He comes from Louisville, where they're playing a little bit of Patino basketball as far as the three-point shot goes. Pretty much a clean roster. Really only 2 players that had significant playing time a year ago are back on this roster. A lot of kids have transferred in. They got a kid by the name of Jarrell Rochelle, who played at Rice as a freshman, 2 years at Rhode Island, and now after graduating from Rhode Island, is one of those one-year free agent senior graduate transfers. And he averaged 6 points in his first season as a sophomore at Rhode Island, 3 points last year, and he goes to Eastern Kentucky, and all of a sudden he's like George Gervin. I mean, he's just like pouring in points. So he's the guy. He leads the team in scoring, about 20 a game, and rebounding, a little bit more than 9 per game. So he's the guy that West Virginia will have to watch for.
Yeah, you're right. Rochelle put up 29 in their last outing. This looks like on paper that it's a matchup that is going to favor West Virginia stylistically. This is a team that likes to get up and down, but they are struggling to stop people. They're 330th in field goal defense, and they're 294th in rebounding margin. So as we look for those keys for West Virginia, offensive rebounding always be one of them. It looks like this team's going to play right into West Virginia's hands, at least on paper.
Yeah, this has all the makings of one of those games in which West Virginia statistically just dominates the glass. This needs to be one of those nights in which, they're probably a minimum of 15 rebounds to 20 more rebounds than Eastern Kentucky. And when it comes to shot attempts, if they can turn them over, when it comes to shot attempts, they should again be, in double digits, at least double digits more in shot attempts. You're right. This does not play into the weakness by any stretch of West Virginia. This is what West Virginia does.
Looking big picture, West Virginia obviously as a team shoots the ball much better at the Coliseum than they have outside, but still overall 30% from three, only a 60% free throw shooting team. I don't think it should be a big worry tonight, but down the road, how big is a worry is it that this team just struggles to put the ball in the basket?
It's going to become a huge worry after tonight because, believe it or not, here we are getting ready to play our last game at home in December, and we only have one game left in the month of December at Virginia Tech on December 30th. This team has not yet played a true road game. And I don't know if we touched on this last week, but for whatever reason, road games in college basketball, I think, are the most difficult. I think road games in basketball are more difficult than road games in football. It's because of the intensity and the depth, the closeness of the crowd. It's just harder. And so we're getting ready after tonight to play 3 consecutive road games: Blacksburg, Manhattan, Kansas, and then TCU. So I know that's not the who's list of most frightful places to play, but it's not your home floor, and the other team's going to have its fans there. And so I think after tonight, Goose, you've got to be able to be more consistent offensively. I think really, to be honest with you guys, I think what happens with this Mountaineer team over the next really 2 weeks is going to be a very good indicator of what's in store for the rest of the season. And the reason I say that is this. You're not starting with the cream of the cream in the Big 12. You better get your wins against all the teams that you're supposed to beat, because everything from here on in is just going to get more and more difficult, really, after tonight is over.
See, that's a great point, too, because if you go down those Big 12 opponents you just mentioned to start, Kansas State, TCU, and then go one further with Oklahoma State being the game after that, those are all games, as you sit here right now and look at those, you say you have got to get those games coupled with the non-conference start that West Virginia's had. Now you're starting to put yourself in a position for an NCAA tournament, and you can start playing for seeding. You give a couple of those back, and then suddenly you start to get a little nervous.
Right, because in each of the last 2 years, what have we done? We started off in the league season 2-0, right? It's been TCU and it's been Texas Tech, 2-0, 2-0. Well, this time it's going to be K-State and TCU. You still have to find a way to get and be 2-0. These games are incredibly important, so I just think we got to get a lot better and a lot more consistent ASAP.
Are we to the point right now it's hard to tell exactly what you've got with this West Virginia team? I mean, we're making some leaps, and we have some assumptions based on last year, and we've seen a few things, but the level of competition has been uncharacteristically easy for WVU so far. Are you to the point where you still need to learn a little more about this team?
I think they're a beautifully schizophrenic team at this point. I really do. And I think they do these things in these incredible extremes. They're among the nation's best in steals and three-point percentage when it comes to defending the three-point shot, and a couple of other stats just make you kind of go like, wow. And then there's some other things that they do that kind of make you go, ooh. And so, it's totally fair to say that at this moment we're still trying to figure out exactly where they are. It probably is somewhere in the middle. They're probably not the best team in the country when it comes to stopping the three-point shot, but they'll be good at doing it probably all season. Hugs continues to talk about, just being a straight guarding defensive team. Just straight line drives are what drives him absolutely insane, and people can take him off of the bounce. That has got to get a lot better quicker. And, individually, we haven't even started talking yet, about the likes of, Issa Ahmad. A couple of folks have written some stories here recently, and I know Alan Taylor did, about Issa Ahmad. And, I mean, if we're going to be where we thought we were going to be, and we need to get him going like real quick. He's got to have his light bulb come on very soon for us to achieve the goals that people have for us, because you're not going to be able to just go out there and he's just going to be a guy that's just a guy. He's got to become a guy that, you know, is going to be someone that defensively other teams are worried about.
As we get closer into conference season, to expand on that a little bit, one of the things that this team had going for it at the end of the season was just the depth. And we thought that with all these guys coming back, they were just going to be able to roll out bodies. As we come into the Big 12 season, are we kind of setting this rotation where you've got the starting five, and then you've got Paige and Phillip as the backcourt guys, and Adrian and Macon as the front court guys? I'm not seeing a whole lot of run for Myers, and even Brandon Watkins is working himself back in. Are we at the point where this is a 9-man team?
No, I don't think Tavon Myers is going to do anything this season, to be honest with you. I think he'll be what he is. He'll just be a role guy. I just don't think the transition is going to happen fast enough for him, so he'll be some spot minutes as the season goes on. I think that they've got bigger aspirations for Brandon. I think that Brandon has kind of shown, you know, last year that he could become more of a serviceable player. So among the two, or between the two, I would say that Watkins has a chance to get more playing time and be more of a productive player.
So each time we talk this year, I feel like we're going to talk point guard. We did a little bit on Friday's show. Javon Carter, I thought, had a decent game down at Marshall. You look at his stat line. If he gives you that each game, you're probably pretty thrilled with that kind of production. Agree?
100% agree. That's what he's got to do. He doesn't need to be flashy. He doesn't need to be the guy. He just needs to be the consistent point guard for this team, and his points will come. You know, one of the great point guards that we've had here in the last quarter century was Darius Nichols. And he never was the guy that people, you know, ran into their seat to say, I came here tonight to watch Darius Nichols play. He was just a guy that just went out there and made plays, didn't turn it over, scored when he could, scored when he needed to, defended. Those are all the things that I think Javon just needs to morph himself into.
I know we had talked about this and, you know, what all went on in Elijah Macon's personal life last year, and the fact that he basically missed an entire year the year before that, setting out due to academics. What do you make of his progress this season?
He's on the uptick. Certainly not a finished product yet. Needs to develop consistency, but he does show you some flashes. I think that he's putting the ball down on the floor and taking it to the basket exceptionally better than he did a year ago. You know, a year ago you could almost watch him play and just see paralysis by analysis. You know, he was still thinking. Now I just think he's much more fluid. So not a finished product yet. Needs to be able to continue to do that coming off of the bench every game. And become more of a factor. You know, as everyone knows, I mean, he's got a huge upside. He was a top 75 player in the country coming out of high school. The thing with him is he just needs to bring it consistently. That's always been, you know, the asterisk next to his name. That, you know, he goes up and he goes down, and he goes up and he goes down. And those guys are oftentimes the most frustrating because you see that it's there and then it doesn't come. So when he gets to the point where he just turns into a man beast, you know, like a Devin Williams has, I think then he's got the full package.
All right, we'll leave it there. Have a good call. Thanks for clearing some time. We'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Okay, guys, we'll see you.
All right, there he is. Tony Caridi checking in, previewing Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, coming up in a little more than a half an hour over at the Coliseum. Time for a break. When we come back, Alan Taylor has some news on Tony Gibson's contract. He'll explain next. Stay with us as the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline continues. He'll explain next. Stay with us as the Northside Automotive Statewide.
Someday we'll go to the edge of the galaxy, but for now, you can go to the ends of the earth in a Jeep brand SUV. Find your adventure in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most awarded SUV ever. Catch a show of shooting stars underneath the night sky in the Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 four-wheeler of the year. And go far, far away in the Jeep Renegade with up to 31 mpg highway. Hurry in for a great deal at the Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event. Deal ends January 4th. Star Wars: The Force Awakens in theaters now, rated PG-13. Well-qualified lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4 for $279 a month for 36 months with $24.99 due at signing. Tax, title, and license extra. EPA estimate: 1.4-liter engine with manual transmission. Call 1-888-925-JEEP for details. Requires dealer contribution and lease through Ally. 20-cent charge for each mile over 30,000. Residency restricted supply. Take delivery by 1-4-16. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
There are things that make our lives easier.
You know, locking shoelaces, pizza scissors, remote control mops, one-hand bottle cap openers, and the Know Before You Go driving app.
It's free travel information on West Virginia highways, traffic congestion, work zones, road conditions, information that can make your travel easier. Log on to WV511.org or download the WV511 Drive Safe app.
Know Before You Go. It'll make your life easier.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Welcome back in. Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline, Monday edition. Brad Howe, Randy Goose, Jerko, along with you. And earlier today, Alan Taylor posted a story at WVMetroNews.com saying WVU has removed an important clause in Tony Gibson's contract. For the full story, let's go to the phones where Alan joins us now live from the Coliseum. Alan, good evening.
Hey, Brad. I am live at the Coliseum. I feel like Brent Musburger saying that.
You are looking live. How's the Coliseum crowd? Is anybody coming in yet?
It is not very lively in here yet, but, you know, it's early and it's Eastern Kentucky, and people need to get their Christmas shopping done. I
understand. All right, let's get to the news of the day. You posted an article earlier today talking about the Holgerson clause getting removed out of Tony Gibson's contract. Give us the scoop there.
Yeah, when Tony Gibson, the defense coordinator, signed an extension or an amended version of his contract last November, they upped his salary substantially from about $250 to $650 for this year, $750 for next year, and then 2017, the final year of the contract was $700,000. The $700,000 in that final year had a stipulation that it would only be active if the current head coach, Dana Holgerson, was still the head coach. So basically, it was the university protecting itself by not giving Tony a 3-year guaranteed contract. It was essentially 2 years guaranteed. Well, now the defense played well this year. Holgerson's coming back in 2016, and now that contract clause has been removed, and Gibby is guaranteed the $700,000 for 2017, which, as you know, amongst coordinators, usually multi-year contracts are becoming the norm. It's usually that way, actually, even with some position coaches, but certainly for a coordinator to be working in the final year of a guaranteed contract would have been atypical. So now he's guaranteed for 2017, whether or not Holgerson is still the head coach.
It's interesting. It's an interesting move because, as you mentioned, it was already on the books, albeit with that clause about the head coach. I guess I'm taking this, one as an endorsement of Tony and wanting him to keep around. There were whispers that maybe some other schools may be interested in other coordinator-type positions. But I took this almost as in lieu of extending him or in lieu of giving him a raise because this was already written, this was the way to kind of take care of that part of it and taking care of Tony Gibson in this way. Agree or disagree?
No, I think you're exactly right. And, we've run the numbers on what it would have cost the university to fire Dana Holgerson if they had gone that decision or gone that path. They didn't. And they had protected themselves a little bit with Gibby. And remember at the time, Gibby also was becoming a first-time D1 defensive coordinator. So now that he's got 2 years of sort of goodwill built up and productivity behind him, it makes sense. But yes, even if 2016 doesn't go well for West Virginia and Dana Holger doesn't survive it, Gibby is protected. And that was sort of a step in that direction because a source told me he was a candidate or could have been a candidate for a couple of other Power 5 defensive coordinator jobs, didn't want to make a lateral move. And the potential or the soft feelers that he had from lower level schools, maybe even an FCS school, weren't compelling enough or maybe even fortified enough for him to chase it.
Now that we're talking contracts, in lieu of last week's announcement from athletic director Shane Lyon saying that Dana would be back next year, a lot of people with this news are now hinting at the fact that things are still going on in the back room between an extension for Holgerson. Are you hearing anything on that?
Just that from the West Virginia side, they would like to get it done sooner than later. There's not a hard time frame. Like it's not as though they want it done before National Signing Day for any immediate recruiting purposes. Because let's be honest, most of the recruiting has moved on to 2017 at this point, except for some of the JUCO guys they're chasing now. But they don't want this to drag on until spring practice either. So my guess is you'll probably hear something. I would presume January, February, once the two sides meet, and it could take many forms. It could be a direct rollover, as we've discussed. I feel like we've negotiated the contract.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know why it's taken them so long. I've been talking about this since August.
Just sign what we're talking about.
Yeah, just listen.
Yeah, just go back and use the transcript and say, I like this, I don't like this, Brad's right, Alan's wrong, go with it.
Exactly.
So I presume that'll get done, within the next 30 to 60 days.
It is an interesting offseason, though, when it comes to contracts. Not only do you have that one floating around, but you've got 3 assistants that are also due up either to be renewed or not extended, and that would be Joe DeForest, Damon Cogdill, and Mark Scott. Those are 3 assistants whose contracts are expiring here. Everybody else is set up for next season, but not past that with the exception of Tony Gibson. So I have a feeling you're going to see some movement on the contract front, not just with Dana, but in a lot of other areas as well.
I do too, and on this particular topic, I don't have that verifiable this is going to happen feeling like I do on the others, but I would still be shocked if all 3 of those guys were back. If Dana goes and hires an offensive coordinator, then someone else off the defensive side is going to have to go, or one of those type of situations. So I don't know. I guess I would put the likelihood of all 3 of those guys returning somewhere around 50%.
Yeah, I'm with you. Surprisingly, I won't debate you on that. I actually agree with you.
Usually you do it just out of a muscle reaction. It's
That's
like,
a good point, too. That's a good point, too. I got to disagree. All right, before we let you go, just a hoops question here, and we talked to Tony about this a little bit earlier. Are you still at the point with this West Virginia team where it's hard to get a complete gauge on where this team is given the competition that it's played so far?
Yeah, I am. I mean, they played the, 174th ranked schedule in the country, and that sounds bad, but there's a lot of power programs below them, so that's not really atypical for this time of year. It is the 7th weakest non-conference schedule so far in the Big 12, but you got some teams down there 280 and 300 behind them. So that opening weekend or the opening week in the Big 12 when they start at K-State, I think that's going to be a big telltale game because K-State has got some grittiness to them, and it's hard to win there. So to me, until they get into the heart of the Big 12 schedule, you're really not going to know what they've got. And certainly there's one more decent non-conference game coming up in January at Florida too. So, really, I'm like you. I didn't think they were necessarily a Sweet 16 team last year, but they got it done, and I see elements of them being good enough to get back, but I also see elements of them struggling to be 500 in the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it sets up an absolutely critical stretch that you just mentioned when you open at K-State, at TCU, and then home for Oklahoma State. As you look on paper, those are all three teams in the Big 12 that West Virginia needs to get wins against if it's going to advance into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, especially Oklahoma State's had some troubles so far, and as of right now, Travis Ford's clearly the Big 12 coach that is in the most hot water based on some of the preseason losses that they've had. So you could almost make the argument that if West Virginia isn't 2-1 coming out of that stretch, that they're in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll let you run. We know you got to get inside and get ready for the game. Thanks for clearing some time, and we'll catch up later in the week.
Always fun, guys. Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you before then.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you. There he is, Alan Taylor. Make sure to keep up with him at wvmetronews.com, and you can check out that article on Tony Gibson's contract at the site as well. Time to get a final break in. When we come back, Travis Jones joins us to talk about Shepherd's run to the D2 National Championship, which ended Saturday in Kansas City. Stay with us.
As a cyclist, we make choices. We choose which motorcycle manufacturer to buy from. We choose what type of motorcycle we ride. We even choose where and when to ride. We also choose to ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Alcohol is involved in 50% of motorcycle fatalities in West Virginia. That's 1 in 2 drivers who die each year. Don't become a statistic. Ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Presented by the West Virginia Department of Transportation, Governor's Highway Safety and Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Program.
Someday we'll go to the edge of the galaxy, but for now, you can go to the ends of the earth in a Jeep brand SUV. Find your adventure in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most awarded SUV ever. Catch a show of shooting stars underneath the night sky in the Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 four-wheeler of the year. And go far, far away in the Jeep Renegade with up to 31 mpg highway. Hurry in for a great deal at the Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event. Deal ends January 4th. Star Wars: The Force Awakens in theaters now, rated PG-13. Purchase and get 0% APR financing for 75 months or $3,500 total cash allowance on the 2015 Jeep Cherokee Limited 4x4. EPA estimate 1.4-liter engine with manual transmission. 0% APR financing for 75 months equals $1,333 per month per $1,000 financed for well-qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital regardless of down payment. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery by 1/4/16. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Final segment of the show. Welcome back in. Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline Monday edition. You know, it's not too late to find the perfect Christmas tree. Mountain Vista Tree Farm in Princeton makes the search enjoyable for the entire family. Enjoy hot chocolate, horseback rides, and a toasty fire pit. For more information, call 1-800-225-5982 or visit go-to-wv.com. And Goose, we've spent the last few weeks keeping an eye on Shepherd as they advanced all the way through the Division II National Football Playoffs. They landed in the championship game on Saturday in Kansas City. Let's take a look back at that run they had and the game on Saturday with Travis Jones, who was on the call with our Rasheed Marshall Saturday from Kansas City. Trav, good evening.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're well, sir. How are you? Are you back?
Great. Yeah, I made it. I left. I drove straight out Friday. I left right after the game on Saturday night, drove from Kansas City to St. Louis, and then made the trek back the rest of the way on Sunday.
All right, well, let's talk about this game. And your scouting report was dead on. This was a wonderful run for Shepherd. They had a fantastic season, a great run through the playoffs. They just ran into an absolute buzzsaw in Northwest Missouri State, and in particular that defense.
They did. Now, I'll be honest with you. My overall, not only on the field, but just my overall experience with Northwest Missouri State and seeing, just to give you an idea, I rolled into the stadium about 4 o'clock or about noon Eastern time for the 4 o'clock kick on Saturday. And as I was getting near Sporting Park, which is a complex that's located about 20 miles outside of downtown Kansas City, Missouri, in Kansas City, Kansas, the Kansas Motor Speedway is right there in that same complex. There's a big shopping area out there. That area you can tell is really grown up, I think, around the Speedway and the casino area first and foremost. And then they built this brand new, beautiful soccer complex that is the MLS home for the Sporting Kansas City team out there. So I roll in, and there's traffic already 4 hours before. And, we're expecting a crowd of about 18,000. So I didn't expect there to be traffic that early, but it was all Northwest Missouri State fans. And, once I got through the traffic and started seeing the lots around the stadium, it was just fans everywhere. Green and black tailgating, flying flags. Really gave me the feel that this was as close to a Division I team as you're going to get in Division II. In the stadium was no different. They brought a ton of fans. They brought a great band. They had a huge alumni tailgating event, prior. So, really got the feeling that this is a program, obviously, that has played in a lot of national championships in their ninth. And then, on the field, they certainly look like a Division I football team. Very good defensively, as you mentioned, 10 sacks in the game. And, Colin Bevins, who was a transfer from Iowa State, he had a tremendous afternoon, had 4 sacks in the game, 4 of the 10. So, I was just thoroughly impressed with Northwest Missouri State all around.
Talking to the Shepherd coaches after the game, was there any point in the game that they had talked about pulling quarterback Jeff Ziemba? He was hurt the week before. Yep. Backup came in, beat Grand Valley State, led him to that national championship game. You could tell that, first off, you mentioned it, 10 sacks. He was taking a beating back there, but you could kind of tell he was favoring that left shoulder a little bit. Was there any talk in taking him out?
Yeah, Monte Cater addressed it after the game, and I think there was some discussion, but just the sense that he had worked so hard during the week to get ready, coming from that. He had a sprained AC joint in the shoulder the week before, and they felt like he had a good enough week in practice to be effective in the game. And the backup quarterback, albeit had a great game against Grand Valley State the week before, coming in off the bench cold, and had only thrown 8 passes on the season, and led him to a victory, Connor Jessup, in that game. I don't know, Randy, to be honest with you. I'm sure that's the type of thing that Monte Cater probably will look at over the offseason and second guess. Just looking back at the way that the game went, I think it was really I'm not so sure that his shoulder wasn't, speaking of Jeff Ziemba, I'm not so sure his shoulder wasn't a factor in the first turnover in the game on the first snap. It was a high snap. Mm-hmm. He's got a bad shoulder, so he couldn't get really both hands up to try to catch the high and wide snap. And then, had to bend down to try to pick it up, and that was tough to do. And, anytime you're in a national championship game, it's an overwhelming event for Shepherd first and foremost, and then you go out on the first play and fumble the ball and give them the ball at the 5-yard line. And they're in the end zone just 2 plays later. that's a huge kick to the gut. As Rashid and I talked about, you prep and plan and go through all the scenarios in your mind leading up into that game of the way you think it might go. And if you're Shepherd, nobody anticipated it going that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's tough to recover from. But, honestly, to give them credit, we kind of settled in after that into kind of a field position game. Both teams weren't able to move the ball with a whole lot of success after that. So Shepherd really settled in, but it just came down to, I don't care if it was Jeff Ziemba, I don't care if it was Connor Jessup in that game. I just think the Northwest Missouri State defense was so good that it was going to be really tough for Shepherd to win that football game.
I agree with you, Travis. That defensive line in particular felt like they were on Ziemba all day, even when there wasn't a sack. Well, let's look forward real quick. We got about a minute left here. We talked all through these weeks about what this did for the Mountain East Conference and the rep and getting two teams in, and then Shepherd goes so deep on the heels of Concord making that run last year. Kind of in the last 30 seconds here, just set up what that meant for the league and look forward a little bit to next year.
Crazy exposure, and I think you're going to see the benefit of that for all these Mountain East Conference teams, particularly Shepherd and Charleston, out on the recruiting trail. Because, now D2, you obviously hit your geographic areas that know the Mountain East Conference, but I think now, guys, these coaches can call on these high school coaches, and these high school coaches will have a point of reference now as to who the Mountain East Conference is. So great experience, and I think certainly you'll see the benefit, maybe not in this recruiting class for these teams, but certainly in the next one.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Great. And by the way, you hit right on the number there. You can tell you're a professional broadcaster, so excellent. Well done. Hey, by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say you guys did a tremendous job all season carrying that game of the week. Excellent coverage, great exposure. Look forward to doing it again next year. Excellent job. We'll talk here soon.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, there he is, Travis Jones. He and Rashid did. They were fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah, it was awesome.
Carl Lee filled in, did a little bit too when they couldn't be there. Dave Weekley, just a tremendous job by the whole Metro News crew with that Mountain East game of the week. That's going to do it for tonight. If you missed any part of the show, remember, you can catch the podcast on iTunes or visit our website, wvmetronews.com, and download tonight's show. Thanks to Travis Jones for joining us, Alan Taylor, Tony live from the Coliseum. We'll back at it tomorrow, 6:06. We'll talk to you then. For Goose, I'm Brad Howe. Thanks for listening. We're out.